Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project HR, a podcast dedicated to building better workplaces. Project HR is brought to you by Projections, an IRI company. IRI helps organizations navigate workplace challenges, improve employee engagement and productivity, manage labor relations, and implement effective communication strategies to achieve their goals. For more information, you can visit Projections online at projectionsinc.com. I am Jennifer Oraquah, Director of Business Development for IRI, and your host for today's episode of Project HR. Now, digital transformation, or DX, is a strategy of enabling business innovation. DX means incorporating digital technologies into your company's operational processes and leveraging the opportunities those technologies offer. In HR, DX focuses on the building of a digital ecosystem in which there's a coherent and seamless integration between employees and all stakeholders, providing greater overall value. But the digital workforce experience is about more than just technology. And my guest today, Jason Averbook, has literally written the book on this topic, The Ultimate Guide to a Digital Workforce Experience, Leap for a Purpose. Jason is currently acknowledged as one of the top 3 thought leaders on the future of work. He's listed in the top 100 leaders globally influencing the future of work and the HR function. He's a global keynote speaker, industry analyst, and the CEO and co-founder at LeapGen, a digital transformation company shaping the now of work. Jason's mission is to broaden the executive mindset, to rethink how we design and deliver employee services so we can exceed the expectations of the workforce and the needs of the business. Jason, yours is a fascinating perspective. I can't wait to dig in. It's wonderful to have you here on Project HR.
It is so great to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction, and I'm really excited to have this conversation.
So I was just talking about the fact that digital transformation, or DX, is about more than just the tech itself. So what do we mean when we talk about digital transformation?
Yeah, great question. So let me answer it in 2 different ways, one around the word digital and one around the word transformation. When we start thinking about digital, we use really a 4-segment equation for what creates digital today. And those 4 segments are mindset and vision, people and audience, journey and process, and then technology. And what's so important about the world of digital is to help people understand it's not just about the technology, as you stated. Mm-hmm. Technology is what fuels the digital strategy. But the digital strategy is made up of who are you from a mindset standpoint? Who's your audience, and understanding them from a persona point of view? Realizing that processes generate data, but journeys generate feeling, and then having technology to fuel that going forward. Those 4 components make up digital.
Makes sense. So I noticed that you quoted Jack Welch before and saying that if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. And it's true that we've reached the point where our employees have better digital experiences in almost every aspect of life outside of work than they do at work. What kind of impact does that have on us as employers?
Well, it has a huge impact on us as employers because we have to ask ourselves this question constantly. It's 2021 or 2022, close to that. Mm-hmm. Outside of work, what year is it? What does it feel like inside of work? So it feels like 2022 outside of work, but inside of work, we still do things like it's 2010. We still do things like it's 2005. And guess what? We're the same humans outside of work that go to work or go online to work. So that chasm creates a ton of what I call enragement, not engagement, but enragement. It causes a ton of abandonment of, hey, we bought this technology, but guess what? No one's using it. Why is no one using it? Because we've buried it on a link farm somewhere. So it's really, really important to constantly be realizing what our experiences are as consumers, what's happening outside of work, and then inside of work, trying to come as close as possible to replicating that.
And in an article that you wrote earlier this year, you had a great line that technology is the fuel, it's not the vehicle. And I love that idea. So staying with that metaphor, what is the vehicle here then?
So the vehicle is what you're trying to do. So, and that's, so what is your measure of success? Is your measure of success hiring faster? Maybe. Is your measure of success generating more revenue? Oh, by the way, one of the ways to generate more revenue is hire faster.
Hmm.
Is your measure of success promoting culture and value? So realizing that if I just buy technology without having a measure of success that isn't go live, guess what? More than likely, what I'm going to do is just go live and then say, this didn't get me where I was going.
Right.
So the point of it is that the vehicle knows what we're trying to do. And by the way, I know if I'm going skiing that I need a certain vehicle. I know if I'm going to the beach, I need a certain vehicle. I know if I want to go on a motorcycle ride and have my hair blow in the wind, I need a certain vehicle. The fuel is still there. But what do I need based on what I'm trying to do and what my ultimate outcome is really what we talk about when we think about the difference between digital, which is the strategy, and technology, which is basically the implementation component or one piece of it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. In your first book, HR From Now to Next, which was published way back in 2014, I know today it's used by over 19 universities around the world. What's changed in HR tech since those early days, and really what stayed the same?
Wow, that is such a great question. Thank you so much for asking it. So, unfortunately, a lot has changed in the world, but unfortunately, a lot hasn't changed within organizations. And I said unfortunately on purpose because when I say unfortunately, it's really important that we're constantly aligning what's going on outside as well as how does that impact inside. So there have been some unfortunate things like people and kids getting bullied on social media. That's unfortunate. And guess what? We've decided, well, we're using social media outside of work. Let's use that inside of work. And all of a sudden, no one does it. Why? Because they're worried that HR is looking at it and HR is the police. So we unfortunately have mega trends going on outside that affect inside. But at the same time, there's the fortunate part of it, which is we've truly got better technology in the palm of our hand now than we've ever had. We have better capabilities in the palm of our hand than we've ever had. But yet, unfortunately, HR still has been putting in HR technology, which is how you asked the question, just like it sounds, as technology for who? HR. HR technology is no longer about technology for HR. The best and the brightest leaders in the HR space understand that if I deploy capabilities to the workforce and I design the technology for the workforce with empathy infused, guess what? I, as an HR function, am going to get better data. I, as an HR function, am going to be able to free my hands work and turn it into hearts work. And I, as an HR function, am going to be able to deliver better value back to the business.
So I want to dig in a little bit to something you said just a second ago. I think it's important to note that when we talk about digital transformation of HR, you're not just talking about using tech as the fuel to transform one department. You're talking about something that impacts our entire company, right?
Yeah, and that goes back to the second definition that I wanted to create up front, which is that of transformation. Trans means change. Trans means change. And there's two words. There's transition and there's transformation. Organizations can do a technology transition, which means they're basically changing technology. But guess what? The output, the results can be exactly the same. Or I can do a digital transformation, which is changing how work happens. And that is a very important point for every HR leader to understand and ask themselves, are we doing and do we want to do a digital transformation, which, by the way, every HR organization in the world, large or small, should be doing? And are we just masquerading by changing the technology only?
So when we talk about rethinking how we design and deliver employee services, there's a deep level of organizational introspection required. Are your clients ever surprised by that element of the process?
Oh, huge. Because guess what? Everyone wants to be high touch. Like, it's always weird to me that HR people talk so much about touching. Like you would think that HR people wouldn't talk about touching.
Right.
That's just my little bit of a joke there.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, as my kids would say, a dad joke. But
Mhm.
when we think about touching, there's two types of high touch. There's high touch digital and there's high touch human.
Mhm.
And every HR department needs to ask themselves, which capabilities do I want to deploy that make sense for employees, managers, and leaders to just have direct access to get this stuff done
Mhm.
without talking to someone?
Right.
And which are the capabilities where it truly makes sense to talk to someone? If
Mhm.
I have a death in my family and I'm having a mental health issue, do I want to talk to a bot? No.
Right.
But if I want to change my address, do I want to talk to a human? I mean, there are still people that are going to want to talk to a human, but do I need them to talk to a human? No.
Mhm.
And those are the types of decisions, by the way, that need to be made before you start technology implementation.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. All right, Jason, I need to take a quick sponsorship break right now, but when we return, I want to go deeper into creating your company's digital vision. So stay with us.
Are you confident that your supervisors know how to support your company's direct connection with employees? Even when you have the best intentions, and especially if your company is successful, unions may target your employees. How can you make sure that your managers and supervisors know how to support your union-free operating philosophy in a positive way? LaborWise Leadership e-learning will give your frontline leaders the training they need anywhere, anytime on any device. With interactive elements including videos, quizzes, and downloadable transcripts, LaborWise Leadership's curriculum covers all aspects of meeting employee needs while remaining union-free. Better still, you'll have the peace of mind that comes from knowing your leaders are well-trained and would never violate employee rights. Learn more and get a free demo or trial of LaborWise Leadership e-learning today at laborwiseleadership.com.
I'm back with Jason Averbrook, CEO and co-founder at LeapGen. So, Jason, what's the actual process here? I'd love for you to share your digital HR strategy, the magic 20, 25, 45, 10 formula.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Thank you for that. And by the way, that formula changes all the time. So, that 2025 40 10, that formula,
Mm-hmm.
it's changed in 2021 and 2022 to really have a 35 to 40% focus now on mindset. Because guess what? Work has changed, workers have changed, business has changed, HR needs to change
Mm-hmm.
more than ever. So mindset is more important than ever. But to create that digital strategy, it really requires creating that overall digital vision. And the digital vision is made up of four key components. First of all, what is our digital story? OUR digital story, not your neighbor across the street, not someone else in your peer group. What is your digital vision? That should be the 30-second cocktail napkin pitch
Okay.
that you can give to someone. Like, hey, how do we want to deliver capabilities as an organization? Underneath that, then, what are our guiding principles? Is it going to be simple? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be flexible? Is it going to be mobile? What are the principles? How do I describe those principles so that when I move into deployment, I keep that in mind? And last, how am I going to measure success? So for me to say I want an easy experience or a delightful experience, like, don't those words sound cool? But how do I measure that? Because
Mhm.
guess what? It's in the eye of the beholder. So I want to understand, how am I going to measure it? And some examples of that are abandonment rate.
Mm.
So if someone's using a piece of technology going through a journey and all of a sudden they abandon and pick up the phone and call, guess what? That's not delightful.
So, a lot's been written about how collaborative a digital transformation has to be. With that in mind, what elements should we have in place in order to begin our own digital transformations?
So you really have to, as you're thinking about digital transformation, understand how you're rowing the boat together. And when I say rowing the boat together, it's a three-legged stool, which is a combination of HR, it's a combination of IT, and it's a combination of the business. Now, why are those three involved? HR is involved in creating its vision, in understanding how do we all align, and realizing that we as HR have to adapt or unlearn. in order to work in this new now of work. IT needs to be involved so that they can truly understand HR's strategy, understand HR's vision, and deliver something that fuels that strategy and vision. Not just go live with the technology, but truly fuels it. And then the business needs to be involved so importantly, because guess what? Employees and managers don't work for HR.
Mm-hmm.
They work for the business. So their managers, their leaders need to be involved so that they understand what's in it for them and convince their employees and managers to use these new capabilities, to be part of the change. So all three of those pillars of the stool or legs of the stool need to be the same length, and they need to all be working together in order to deliver true transformative results.
Sure. So what should make up an organization's digital vision?
So as we think about the digital vision, it's really made up of how do you want people to see what you're doing? So a digital vision is really your story. It should be made up of, hey, how would I describe what it is that we're doing to someone off the street? It has to be simple. It has to be easy. It has to be flexible and frictionless. I want it to be a one-stop shop. I'm just throwing out terms. But when you create that digital story, which is that the best way to do it, and we do this with our clients all the time, have someone write a press release. And guess what? I'm going to write a press release that says, here is XYZ's company's digital vision. And when you think about it that way and have everyone buy into it, that's one of the best ways to drive alignment.
Agree. I love that. That's a great exercise. All right, Jason, I'm going to take some time out for another quick break. You and I will be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Oraqua, and my guest today is Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder at LeapGen. I'm back now with Jason Averbook, global keynote speaker and HR industry analyst. So Jason, let's talk a little bit more specifically about LeapGen and the services you offer.
Yeah, thanks for that. So when we think about, first of all, let me go into the quick story about LeapGen. LeapGen, the name LeapGen, the first part of LeapGen, Leap, comes from actually an author that's a great friend of mine. His name is Steve Farber. He wrote a book called The Radical Leap. And Leap actually stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. So in order to transform, you truly have to love what you do. If you love what you do, it generates energy. If you have energy, you can do the audacious, which is what transformations are. And then you need to build in proof to prove that what you set out to do, you actually did, and do that over and over and over again. So what we do at LeapGen is really help organizations through how does transformation work? What do our strategies need to be to transform? Why those strategies make sense aligned to an organization's purpose? How do I deploy those strategies? Which, by the way, a part of deployment might be implementation of technology. It might not be implementation of technology, but how do I deploy those strategies? And then probably most importantly, how do I sustain the strategy and continuously improve the strategy? So how do I not treat the strategy like a rock? And how do I treat it like a pet? Like I walk it daily, I water it daily, I pick up after it daily. It's not like, okay, I just rolled this thing out and guess what? We're done.
Right.
Those days are over. And the world changes too fast. Technology changes too fast. The expectations of the business change too fast to ever think we're deploying rocks versus pets.
Yes. I love that analogy. I'm going to use that one. All right. I was going to ask, can you share a success story or two? You don't have to name any client names, but I'm sure we would love to hear some stories of success.
Oh, I mean, success happens in so many different ways. I mean, we work with big global manufacturing organizations that try to figure out how to get their deskless workers to have access to the benefits and rewards that they need. Interestingly enough, when we first started working with that organization, in order for someone to find what benefits were offered by the company, that someone had to log into a portal. And these are workers that don't have desks, don't have computers. So guess what? They're already eliminated. So why do people not adopt and take part in benefits, oftentimes because they don't even know they're there.
True.
So in that specific organization, it was how do we give capability mobile on a mobile device as to what are the perks, the rewards, and the benefits of working for this global manufacturer. That's a quick win that, guess what, changed the way that the organization thinks. Another example is, during the pandemic that we're living in today, many organizations still think about health as physical versus mental.
Sure.
It's the same thing. It's health. There's not physical health. I mean, there is physical health and mental health, but I shouldn't separate like, hey, we have physical health, but we don't have mental health. So really bringing that concept to life of helping people understand that we are here as an employer to care about you. And we're offering these capabilities to care about you. And here's how we're delivering it to you digitally is key. And just a third one really quickly, there are still organizations in the world that do once a year engagement surveys. It has to be the stupidest tool in the world. Okay. And the reason I say that is basically because I ask a question, on December 18th. By the time that data gets back to me, it's February 18th. It's anonymized. N equals 8. And guess what? Only 4 of the 8 still work here.
Right.
So as a manager or leader, what do I do with that data? It's a terrible tool. I need to be able to ask people day by day how they are. Just give me a green, yellow, red. Are you great? Are you kind of middle of the road? Or are you not good? What does that allow me to do? It allows me to act on it. So in many organizations, we've been able to put in place listening strategies that have been tied to, let's pulse our people daily or weekly so we can act before they turn into an exit interview.
Now, you've brought this thought leadership. You've built it into a community, really, of digital experimentation and forward thinkers, the now of work. Let's talk about the resources you offer there.
The now of work community, if I could just get really, really basic for a second, the now of work community started as a way to get people together in the HR community as they were struggling to deal with what COVID meant and what social justice meant early on. I mean, that's truly how that community started, and it started with me basically saying, you guys, for the last 20 years, we've been talking about the future of work. The future of work is happening to us right now. We are all actors in a movie that in 2030, someone's going to go back and look and say, what did they do? Did they actually take advantage of an opportunity to change? Or did they just do the same thing they've always been doing? And as multiple pandemics, the public health pandemic and the social justice pandemic went on, the community continued to grow. As people said, we really need to talk about this because I don't think this is going to go back to the way it was. We really need to talk about this because I think we need to rethink this whole concept of return to work. Because guess what? To tell people return to work is what we're focusing on. They've been working the whole time. That's probably a stupid thing to say. To think that we don't have a way to deal with the concepts of deskless workers or managers don't know how to deal with the fact that their employees no longer see them every day. That it's time to start checking in on people instead of checking up on people. We needed an avenue to all converse about that as an industry. And that now of work community, which meets every single Friday live, online. That's what we do every Friday is just talk about what is happening now in the now of work.
Yeah, and I love that. It's so needed right now. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you, about LeapGen, and the now of work?
So I would love it if people connected with me on LinkedIn. I don't talk about anything there other than this stuff. So if this stuff interests you, let's nerd out together about it.
Yep.
You can go to leapgen.com, which is basically, our homepage, which will take you right to the Now of Work community, as well as all of the other resources that we offer, white papers, et cetera, et cetera. Or for those of you that listen to podcasts like this one, we have a podcast called The Now of Work, which is usually put out 3 times a week. One is a replay of our community meetings every Friday, but the other two are people in the space that are changing work forever. So those are the three I would throw out there.
Love that. All right. Links to the LeapGen website, as well as Jason's book and the Now of Work site and the podcast will all be included in this episode's companion guide. So be sure to unlock that today at projectionsinc.com/podcast. Right now, though, Jason, it is time for our lightning round questions. And these are questions I like to ask of every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Our first question is always a topic showdown. In this episode, we've been talking about digital transformation. So in your opinion, Jason, which of these industries is currently in greater need for digital transformation, manufacturing or healthcare?
Healthcare.
Okay.
And
that's probably based on the pandemic.
Do I need to give a reason why?
Sure.
Or, yeah, I mean, the reason that healthcare is in need of transformation so much is because it's not, I mean, it's the pandemic, but it's been needed for so long. Mm-hmm. Understand, the pandemic has just raised visibility to these changes that are needed. Mm-hmm. Manufacturing is very transformed already. Automation is rampant within manufacturing. Mm-hmm. Automation is not rampant within healthcare, and it's become so apparent during the pandemic.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right, Jason, what's the best book you've read recently?
The best book I've read lately is a book I've been reading as part of my personal organization's 2022 planning called Blue Ocean Strategy.
Oh, yeah. That's one of my favorites. That's a great one. All right, Jason, what's your favorite thing about the work that you do?
My favorite thing about the work that I do is being able to actually see organizations change. Okay, if I was a personal trainer doing physical personal training, you know, you can start to see results from people pretty quickly. I mean, depending on the person. But for the most part, you can start to see results pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Moving big ships, like that's what these companies are,
sure,
is really hard. And one of the things that I love more than anything is to see these ships start to move, see them start to gain momentum, and see transformation truly happen.
Yeah, that is inspiring. All right, Jason, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've ever been given is to never, ever take any person in life for granted. Every single person has something to contribute, and every day that you spend not listening to someone is a day that you lose knowledge about something in the world.
I like that. All right, last question, Jason. Who or what inspires you?
The thing that the people that inspire me most are my kids. I have two boys, they're 17 and 14. I've started 3 companies, and I've started 3 companies all with the sole purpose of making the workplace better by the time that they enter the workplace. So they inspire me, and they inspire me to help me realize that I'm trying to create a better world for them.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, Jason, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you today. Thanks so much for being on Project HR.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
I also want to remind everyone that we have listened back to this episode and taken fantastic notes that you can download for free. The companion guide for this episode with all the best details, links, and more can be downloaded at projectionsinc.com/podcast. And you know we're always on the lookout for fantastic guests. If you'd like to be on Project HR, or you know someone who would, please email us at projecthr@projectionsinc.com. And of course, make sure you never miss an episode of Project HR. Subscribe online to get the latest episodes delivered right to your inbox. And don't forget to leave us a review or give us a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's it for Project HR for now. Let's make it a great day at work.